Right, on behalf of the American Pakistan Foundation, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. The APF is dedicated to empowering the Pakistani American community through impactful programs, partnerships, and leadership development initiatives like today's session. It's my great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Malik Sarwar. Malik is a globally respected leadership coach, financial expert, and founder of the Global Leader Group. With decades of experience at top financial institutions, a deep passion for mentorship, he has dedicated himself to helping professionals align purpose with performance. Today, he will lead us through success to significance, how to excel in life, your impact, and become a trusted professional. Malik, thank you for sharing your time, wisdom, and leadership with our community. We're truly honored to have you. I'll let you take the reins from here.
Thank you, Zishan. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, everyone. So, one thing that you will take away, I guarantee, will help you become even more successful. This is all about success for yourself. And as you build that, significance for others, which gives you a lot of gratification. What does that do? It allows you to enhance your impact. Whatever profession you're in, you will be at the top of the heap, at the leading edge, if you apply some of these skills that have been gathered working with some of the best global leaders around the world. What we're really saying is, how do you discover your true north? Or your purpose in life, why you are here, why God put you here? What do you want to achieve for yourself, your family, your community, at work, and pleasure? If you can figure that out and you start working on that, and it's a continuous thing, you will be successful. You are responsible for and in charge of becoming the CEO of your life, work life, life in general. If this is an interesting topic, let's just first look at how you go about it. So this is not what you should do, it's how we do it. And I'm going to ask you to also participate in some of the things so we hear from you. If you go to the next page, you will see it's called the Golden Circle. ICC, integrity, competence, and compassion. It's a continuous self-enhancement virtuous loop. Why do we do what we do? There's a purpose. And the more you are linked to your work and life with your purpose, the more satisfying it is in multiple ways, not just in money terms. So let's take a pause and see. We have, I think, a chat box open, Zishan and Maha. So if anybody wants to type into what is one thing that is unique about it, about you, and one thing that you are focused, your pain point that you want to learn about. So we'll pause for a second, type in your answer, your best trait, and area of improvement that you're looking for help.
We'll give it
So I
just
hope
another
you're
minute here. We just reopened up the chat.
okay, good. So Zishan, why don't we just move forward as they're typing in, and as the information comes in, we'll incorporate that. How does that sound? By the way, we have to say special thanks to Maha, who organized with Zishan. She is in Islamabad and she hasn't slept all night So excited to be in front of you and participate in this.
Thank you, Malik.
Okay, so we have a few comments. Unable to break the ice with most people. Minimum room for gray. Okay, we will address that. So let's take integrity. If we go to the next page, please. So this is your inner being, reflecting on your values, what you do when nobody is watching. Maybe God is watching, but if you think no other human is watching or camera, that is your real self. There is a saying, and people believe that oak tree, very thick, is one of the strongest trees. Normally, it is, but bamboo, much thinner, is stronger. Do you know that with a wind of 50 to 70 miles an hour, oak tree, because it is rigid, it doesn't bend, it breaks. Bamboo, which is really appreciated in Asia, Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, where I happened to spend some years, it bends when there's gale force wind and it comes back. So we can learn from bamboo. It doesn't change its value or what it stands on, but life sometimes throws you a punch and you have to duck and you feel bad. It's what you do after that makes you either a very successful, satisfied person or not. You know, there is a average in the world for adults. The annual income is about $60,000. US is for the one percenters. In US, it's 600,000. So you guys who are listening, based on purchasing power parity, are probably in the one percenter club. You are go-getters. That's why you're listening. That's why you're in colleges or you're working. When you are getting, which is great, that's a success. Be significant, meaning become go-givers in anything that you are passionate about. Could be girls' education, maternity care, clean energy. It does not matter what it is. But as you start that and start early, you will find it more fulfilling. Now, I put there 80-20. It's the mindset that determines everything. It's your inner self. 80% of your success will come from 20% of your efforts. When you do that, make sure you are leveraging your strength. Too often people say, oh, I have these weaknesses. Fine. Be aware of those, but sharpen your strength because that's what will get you ahead faster and better. The second thing is, mindset is if somebody says, let's say it's your boss, colleague, somebody in the community, can you do this? And it is tough. People are, yes, I can, and will figure it out. Maybe, not sure, or no. If you're on the positive side, you will figure it out. It'll give you confidence, and you will be looked at as somebody we can rely upon. You know, there's an old saying, if you want to get something done, give it to the person who's the busiest. Now, it's counterintuitive because they get things done. And I wanted to actually ask Maha, you went to undergrad in the US, graduate school, Ivy League. What have you learned? Where are you in your life that others can learn from?
Thank you so much for that question, Malik. And just to introduce myself, I went to undergrad at UNC Chapel Hill, small town college in the suburbs of North Carolina. And then I went to Columbia, which is in the heart of New York City. So going from a small town to a completely large metropolitan city, it was a big change. It was a big transformation, both for me personally and for my career as well. And the one thing that helped me through this journey and even after that is always remember to have small short-term and long-term goals, but also being able to amend them along the way. So I actually set my vision for going to Colombia back in high school when I did a short 2-week summer course there when I was in the 10th or 11th grade. And I saw myself going to whether it was college or grad school in a city like New York. However, I knew that going to a large school in a metropolitan city might not be the best choice for me starting right off in undergrad because I was coming from Pakistan. So I made the decision to go to a state school for undergrad and go to grad school in a bigger, larger city because I would have been in a phase of my life where I would have been able to handle that pressure, handle myself being in a city and also being away from home, from family, friends, and also be receptive to the exposure that a city like New York gives. Now, that shows that I had planned the trajectory of my life for 5 to 10 years in hindsight. But at the same time, when I came to New York, I thought I'd be working at the UN or State Department or the cliche positions that everyone who goes to a policy school ends up at. But I didn't know that I would end up loving working in the nonprofit sector. So that's where I am now, and I'm really happy. So what I learned in hindsight, and it's a takeaway I would like everyone to have, is to have short and long-term goals. And it's great to stick to those, but you also don't know where you might end up being in life in the next 5 or 10 years. And it's okay to take a different trajectory because along the way, you grow so much as a person and professionally that it transforms you. So it's okay to embrace change, but it's also good to have your head set at certain goals.
Thank you, Maha. You are talking to, I think, the people around your professional level, age-wise and education-wise. So wise words. Thank you. Can we go to the next page, please? We discussed this oak tree and the bamboo. So this is the most important page where some of your questions will also be answered. Your life, and take notes, please, because palest ink is stronger than the strongest memory. Confucius said that. If you take notes or type it in, you will remember. It's called an acronym WRLD, World. What you watch, what you read, what you listen to, and D is what you do with all that. So number 3, there are 3 important things here. What do you read daily? What do you read weekly? And what do you watch on an ongoing basis? If you are in the financial services industry, Wall Street Journal is important. Financial Times is important if you're global. And Zishan, you've lived and worked in many countries, from Asia to Latin America, etc. Economist, I recommend for anybody and everybody, not because we always like their ideas. That is the #1 weekly every CEO or most CEOs around the world read. The quality of journalism, it's multiple topics. They say in 1 page, with Fortune and Business Week will do and say in 10 pages. You learn great English. You can send them letters. I have. Once in a while, they publish. It makes you think and you get a well-rounded idea. Even if it contradicts your ideas, you learn something new. That's what makes you wholesome. Around the world, 80 minutes means simply, we're all busy. In the morning, 20 minutes, scan the headlines based on what you do. 11 a.m., scan the next headline. 3 p.m., take a look at some detail. And end of the day, the ones you mark, you go into a little deeper dive. So if you have a discipline of doing that, carving out time, you're likely to stay to that. What do I read? What do I listen to? If you're familiar with TED Talks, which I'm sure you are, it has the best free library of anything in the world. Imagine people who are best in their field, science, art, music, leadership. You get to listen to them for approximately 15 minutes. I try to listen to a TED Talk a day. If I miss, the next day I do two on varied topics. And I've learned I get one or two, max three new ideas that I can incorporate in my life, in my work. So every idea that I'm giving you, this whole presentation, my contribution originality is zero. But because I'm open-minded, mind is like a parachute, works best when it's open. I try to absorb and make sense and bucket it in the right section. So listen to TED Talks, please. And I would urge you to start with two. One is Richardson. It's number one. It's about 73 million views. He wrote about how kids are not being taught the right way. It is hilarious. That's why it's number one. 2 or 3 is Simon Sinek. So please write it down. Sinek. Start with why. And he has others too. And he's written books and he's a consultant. He talks about Apple. Apple doesn't say, we have a PC or we have an iPhone. Would you like to buy it? It's the why, how, and what. Everybody sells PCs. Why is Apple successful? It's the mission, the vision, the purpose. In upskilling, get some certification, degrees. Maha talked about after undergrad, she got a graduate degree. She didn't need to, but now that she has, and in a big city like New York, where I'm also based, you get to learn wholesome skills that help you in life forever. Now, here's a new one. Acumen, if you don't know, acumen.org, please write it down. They have free, and I mean free, best examples of different subjects which you can do online at your own pace. I finished lately Adaptive Leadership. Brilliant. It is how to sell, how to do analytics. It doesn't apply to any particular field, but because they're in the not-for-profit, it applies more to that, but skills are for everybody. Finally, and I'll address the question that was asked, icebreaker. When I used to give talks, when I was in a military school in Pakistan, Cadet College, Hassan Abdal, and I was a debater, or I wanted to be a debater. Every time I would speak, I would stutter because I got nervous. And it stayed with me, but I never gave up my dream until somebody much later when I was working said, stop stuttering, go to Toastmasters. Wherever you live, chances are there's a Toastmasters right in your neighborhood. It's a group of really friendly, really energetic people who will take you in and help you with your presentation skills. If you hear me stutter, whoever catches it first, I will give you $10 per stutter. They took it out just because they tell you how and you practice that. So icebreaker, the best icebreaker if you're nervous is to ask a question. Even in a meeting, if you feel you're junior and they're seniors and opinionated people, if you say something, you look silly, always ask a question. Interesting you say that. Can you give me an example or can you elaborate on that? This is the Oprah Winfrey. Paint a picture and people start talking about themselves. Every time there's an issue, ask about them. People love themselves more than they love anybody else. If you use their name, even more important. The icebreaker will happen. You can always talk about the weather, but that's trite. Talk about them and they love you forever. That's human nature. Board of Advisors. This is interesting. I pre-retired from HSBC as a managing director running global wealth in Hong Kong. Out of Hong Kong, it was 12 markets, including US, Europe, Asia, Latin America. And The reason I got at HSBC and spent 6.5 years was simply this. Somebody who had hired me at Citibank became the head at HSBC, called me, and I joined a month after he joined. Because I went to him first and said, I need your advice. Now, this is really important. You don't go to somebody and say, I'd like you to be on my board of advisors. Usually they're senior people. They will not be pleased. Why should they? I respect your seniority. I like the way you think. Can I ask you for some advice? They give you advice. Most people, 99% of the time, love to talk about themselves and give you advice. When you do that, follow that up and say, is it okay if I come back to make sure I got it right and you can give me further advice? As you build the relationship, then you can count on them for helping you with your careers, opening doors, meeting other people. So from giving you advice, they become a mentor, they become your coach, and they can become your advocates. It has happened to me and many others. When you're not in the room and a promotion is being discussed and there's a short list, those are the people who are on your board of advisors will be in your corner, and you wouldn't have known it if you hadn't gone through the process of helping them. Finally, make sure what is their passion, personal or professional. If you see an article or you hear a podcast that's important to their passion, send it to them. It shows you care. And never, ever lose touch, because the worst thing that's happened to me, and I mentor a lot, is people ask for help. I do. Then they disappear, and this happened. A year and a half later, this person calls, you were so helpful a year and a half ago. I need help. I said, I'm sorry, I don't have time. And I gave him the reason why. You only call when you need help. This is not a relationship. I'm not here to serve you. I hung up. I hope you learned from that. Go to somebody else, but don't treat them the way you did me. It's these small things make a big difference. Remember Archimedes? Give me a lever and I can lift earth. It's the small things you do that will really make you successful. Can we go to the next page, please? Okay. So actually, no, let's stay with the same page. Sorry. So there was a question that was asked about communicating with clarity. So let me just take a few minutes to talk about three things. WMD, I already did WRLD, what you watch, read, listen, and do, and the power of three. WMD, you know, was a bad term, weapons of mass destruction, that caused some invasion in the Middle East. It's actually good. Words, music, and dance. Words have power. When Muhammad Ali said, the greatest athlete on planet Earth, I am the greatest, people paid attention. There's so many there's a heavyweight champion. Does anybody know the name? No. Muhammad Ali took it to the next level. Martin Luther King said, I have a dream. It's these powerful words that turn nations. Barack Obama is a great speaker. Bill Clinton is even better. My favorite is Nelson Mandela. He's got character, he's got presence. And when you're talking, make sure your presence comes through first with words, second, with music. It's how you say it. You raise your voice, you lower your voice. You pause. And when something is important, you repeat it twice. When something is important, you repeat it twice, because people start re-engaging you. And the third one is the power of three. Remember, on this page, you can see I say 1, 2, 3, but I've subsumed some ideas underneath that. But if you say three things you will learn, around the world upscale board of advisors, people are learning. Power of three is veni, vidi, vici. Fight, flight, fight, freeze, whatever it is. So when you're asking a question, ask, can I ask you a question? you said the following. How about this, this, and this? You'll sound more sophisticated. But especially when you're answering you in an interview, tell me about yourself. Why do you want to work here? What have you done? What has been your success story? Always be ready, say three. But don't make the mistake I made years ago at Merrill Lynch in Asia. My US boss flew out. He was new. I wanted to impress him. I just learned that technique, and it occurred to me, and I said, there are three things I'm doing in Asia you'll really like. I said, one. And then I said, the second one. And then I kept on talking, and he said, what's the third? I didn't have a third. He just laughed and he said, you must have gone through some training. Yeah, keep at it. So he smiled, he let me go. So it's things of these nature that really help. Remember, the world is your oyster. Zishan, how many countries have you lived in, worked in, or traveled to?
Alhamdulillah, I've been privileged enough to have lived in 5 different countries and worked around about 40.
So Budapest, Seoul, Korea, where else?
So I've originated from Pakistan. I've lived here in the US. I've lived in Hungary, Korea, and then the UK.
Excellent. So the world is your oyster. And since you are global citizens, it's good to know not just the language, W&D, but also cultural relevance. I'll give you one example. When I first started on Wall Street, my boss asked me, I joined Merrill Lynch, capital markets, cool. I got in somehow. And he said, hey, are you good at doing this? And I said, I'll give it a try. He looked at me and he said, you're from Asia, aren't you? He didn't know the difference between Pakistan, India, and Japan. I was very American. And I'm talking in the 80s. I said, yeah, why you say? He said, change your lingo to, yes, I will do this. Figure it out later. And then when I praise you, don't say, oh yeah, it was a team effort. I know it's a team effort. I'm praising you. First say thank you. In Asia, where I spent 15 years, you don't jump and say me. It's the other way around. So be culturally sensitive to where you are. Next page, please. Okay, compassion. We talked about integrity. We talked about competence. How does it all come together? Strengthen your 6 Qs. EQ, emotional, AQ, adaptability, SQ, spiritual, health quotient, digital, and competency. Now, let me just share with you the bottom ones. Spiritual is SQ, but it could also be social quotient, and they're linked. Before this talk, I'm taking it very seriously, though I'm smiling. I did 10 minutes of deep breathing. And when you are in front of a presentation, giving a presentation, all the words and power of your talk comes from your diaphragm, not your throat. So stretch that, take deep breaths, you will have greater impact. That will help you with meditation because it calms you down, and then you get excited when you're in front of other people. Health quotient is actually, people say you are what you eat. So obviously eat healthy. That's important. It's also important that Johnny Walker, whether you drink or not, I love their keep walking. So at a minimum, if you walk or run or exercise, just keep walking. It's very healthy. Now, DQ is very interesting. I always looked at it as digital. Now with AI coming in, that's all part of that journey, what technology can do for you. And be careful, they can take your job, so stay ahead of the curve. I talked to one of my ex-bosses at Citi who joined MasterCard. He's now at World Bank. His name is Ajay Banga. And I showed it to him because with these presentations, I showed to my board of advisors. There's 7 of them. And he gave me a great advice. He said, what is this digital quotient DQ? There's a better one in D. I said, hey, Ji, Ajay sab bataye. He said, daring quotient. People who dare Yes, I will. Yes, I can. I will try. Even if I fail, I learn and keep trying. That is the cue that you really need to build. I liked it. I haven't added here. I thought I'll do it verbally. IQ, of course, is the competency that we talked about earlier. So let's go to the top two. EQ is emotional quotient. It's how much you care for others, and AQ is adaptability. I'll give you one example. Do you know the Stockdale paradox? Write it down. There was a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. He's a California super consultant of leadership. And Admiral Stockdale was shot down in 1969 outside of Hanoi. He was an American pilot during Vietnam War and was only released in 73 when the war ended. All the other people in Hanoi Hilton, they call it, and I have visited that. It is a shack of prison. It's a prison in the center of the city where they were put. Because he was the senior most, he was tortured the most. But all the soldiers looked up to him. And the reason he survived and many of his people did not, he talked about it a lot. He said, I had no reason for being hopeful, but I believed, I went into myself to say, God has put me on this earth for a reason. By God, I'm not going to give up. Secondly, I accept reality. I may not make it out from here. I'm tortured daily, but I will not give up. But I accept that reality stuff. You know his famous quote, who actually didn't make it? The optimists. We'll be freed in Easter. We'll be freed in summer. We'll be freed in Christmas. The optimists died of a broken heart. So whatever you're doing in life, yes, positive is good, but first you have to accept your reality. And the last exercise we'll do, accepting reality, is the stepping stone to future success. And in terms of EQ, we'll talk a little bit more about it later. Let's go to the next page. This is the page where EQ helps tremendously. This is called social styles. Everybody has a social style, how they act. If you look at the vertical axis, at the top it says task, at the bottom it says relationship. Horizontal axis, right says rapid, left says methodical. Everybody has 4 personality styles. Top right, driver. What does driver do? They're focused on the task. They don't have time for chit chat. They are rapid in decision making. They have very little tolerance for people just talking over. I told you the example of the person I worked for at Citibank, and then I joined him at HSBC. I flew from New York to Singapore. There was an opening for head of wealth for Citibank. I was at Merrill. I go in, stay at night at the hotel. Early morning, I have an interview with this fellow, Simon Williams. He started Lending Club. He's now an entrepreneur. And he said, how was your flight? Now, in those days, there was no direct flight. It was 21 hours. And I said, very long. But I slept and I went to the pool to swim. And as I started talking about myself, I realized his eyes were glazing. He couldn't care less how my flight was. He was just being polite. And I realized this is a driver. I quickly became quiet and focused on, tell me, what have you done at Merrill in Asia and the US? I had 3 things ready. I was very brief. At the end of that, I went to a few other countries in Asia to talk to the country heads. Flew back 24 hours later. I got an offer. I accepted. Simon is a driver. I am expressive. I like to chat. If somebody comes to me and says, hey, you wanted this, I gave it to you, here it is, I don't like that. I want to first chat. The people that are most important in the organization, they're all important, are amiables. They are the glue of the organization. Look, if you can look at bottom left, they are methodical, thoughtful, people-centric, soft-spoken. If you push them, if that's your boss and you push them, you lose them. Treat them with extra respect, use their name. The top left, if that's your boss, and I've had one, and usually diagonally is tough, I would always go armed with data because they're analytical. They need to think through, and you never push them. Knowing these styles, where you are, whoever you're talking to, it could be your spouse, your sister, your brother, your parents, you become more effective if you know their style and adapt to that. So that's the power of social styles. Okay, let's see if there are any other questions. Oh, Simon Sinek, yeah. So as we come to a close, let's see if I have answered the question. Oh, this is a very interesting one. So I covered the communication with clarity, communicate with clarity. Think, speak. If you hesitate, remember I did not do ah, because I take a deep breath. That's what Toastmasters taught me. Your clarity will go up. Short sentences, pauses, tone up, tone down. And remember I said to you WMD and I didn't cover the D. D is the dance. So words, music, dance is how you use your body for emphasis. Again, in certain cultures in Asia, they don't use their hands at all in Japan. I use the hands a lot. So over there, I would try to hold them together so they don't get overwhelmed. As you know, in Italy, if you tie their hands, they can't speak, as the saying goes. So you have to be cognizant of who you are. But gentle use of hands, it's a really big opportunity, and we got to sharpen it to a few things that we can do. So that then accentuates the power of what you're saying, and therefore you have greater impact. Now, the last question was procrastination. I read that there is a procrastinators club in the world that was started 200 years ago. They haven't had their first meeting yet. That's a joke. If you procrastinate, go deep within yourself. What is one thing you're passionate about? Start that. And once you get rolling, the momentum builds for you to do more. So that would be my only advice on that. Let's go to the next page. So now you've learned integrity, competence, compassion, and 3 things in each of those. How do you apply this? If you go back and say, oh, Maha, Zishan, Malik were really good, that has been a waste of your time and hours. But if you say, I will take one minimum, something I learned that I will apply, you do it for 30 days, it becomes a habit. And that will have a greater impact for you. And you take another one. In order to have the discipline, get a buddy. Could be a friend, a colleague, whatever, because the buddy then there's a chance of discipline to say, hey, what have you done? You want to talk about this, and do it both ways, because buddy increases the discipline. Follow GROW model. It's out and you can check it out. GROW model stands for what is your goal? R is reality. O is what is your option? And W is the way forward. Start small. What is my goal for the second half of 2025? What is my 3-year goal? Write it down. It is personal, family, work, community, all or any of those. When you write it down, you're likely to follow that more because that's human nature. That's how the brain is wired. My goal is by end of year, I write articles for Financial Times, PWM, and for Khalij Times, which is on my LinkedIn also. So my goal, there's one other publication I want to write for. It's really high quality, like FT, and they have declined. My goal is to get into that publication. What is my reality? They've rejected all my requests. What is my option? Write something really unique. Use one of the board of advisors I have who probably has connection there to say, you should give Malik a chance. He's really good as a thought leader in your field. As a way forward, I'm going to contact the senior person. I'm thinking of some creative topics that they will like, and let's hope I succeed. That is an example of a grow model. I mentioned choose one golden nugget with a buddy, follow it for 30 days. You will see the benefit yourself. When you do, you'll find the next and the next nugget and become better and better. Remember, it's a journey, not an end. It's always iterative. It's continuous. If we get that, we're on the road to success. Let's go to the last 2 pages. This is one for you to think about. There's no skill here because it will make you a better, deeper human being. The complexity of success and significance was an article written in Harvard Business Review in 2004. There are 4 stages. Happiness. You feel happy, contented. I'm feeling really good talking to you folks because it's on meaningful stuff, something I'm passionate about. Achievement. Maha finished her master's degree. That's a great achievement. She very well hosted the APF annual event, May 30th and 31st in New York, and she led the whole thing. Great achievement. It becomes more interesting when you start moving into significance. Mother Teresa was asked, do you think you are significant? No, do you think you're successful? And she said, I don't look at that. I want to be significant in other people's lives. This is where you transcend success for yourself and start becoming more important to others who are below you. In an acumen, they say those at the bottom of the pyramid. And finally, you guys are young, but you can start building your legacy by helping others so that long after we are retired or whatever, people are benefiting from that. And the final one, next page, Zishan, is this. Applies to everybody. Black swan was discovered in 1672 by a Dutch explorer in Australia because everybody knew there was white swans. He found one. So it's an unlikely event. Actually, there's a lot of black swans now. The world didn't know that. Black swan is unknown. Whatever you're doing in your profession, your studies, you can't prepare for COVID. It was a black swan. 2009 world financial crisis was not a black swan. It was a black rhino. It was a known unknown. There are about 4,000 to 5,000 black rhinos in the world. So they are seen. If you focus on the black rhinos, if you know where the trends and opportunities are, we'll succeed. Remember, mega trends, and that's my final word. Follow mega trends. It's swimming downstream. It's a lot easier than swimming against the current. Mega trends are moving. What are some of the mega trends? I'll just give you a few that I've focused on has helped me. AI, we all know, is a mega trend. It'll be net good, but it could be disruptive for a number of things. If you're in front office, middle office, back office, different impacts. Depending on the profession, different impacts. So that would be one. The other is women empowerment. Remember, in the 80s, coming from Pakistan, it is a patriarchal society. I realized once I got married, and I have 2 girls and 2 boys, they all live nearby. They're all working. Some are lawyers, some are entrepreneurs. In my family of 50-50 gender balance, women are 70-30 in terms of skills. Women have more power. Women are making more money. Women are more successful. And frankly, since I worked on Wall Street and I know some of the people who caused the crisis, if Lehman Brothers was Lehman's sisters and brothers, it's okay to have a brother. It would probably not have failed. That's a trend. The next generation transfer to next gen from the baby boomers of $128 trillion is another mega trend depending on which markets you're in. I'm just giving you a few examples. Focus on mega trends, swimming downstream, you will be successful. Wish you all the best. we are available. I'm going to pass it on to Maha and Zishan to help with any follow-up that might come up later. Thank you.
No, perfect. Thank you so much, Malik. That was a very inspiring and incredible presentation. I guess just one question I'll share on really just behalf of the community is you've been in the a professional for decades. So given the current kind of uncertainty around the job market, especially with the introduction of AI, what recommendation do you have for recent graduates? And those maybe still at the university level to start preparing themselves for today's job market
That's a
and
great
get
question.
themselves ready to be successful.
Yep. I'm not sure I have the answer, but there's two things worth looking into. First, look at AI to figure out, ChatGPT, put it in, which professions will be impacted the most. So use it for your benefit before it turns against you. That's one. The second is always remember it's high tech, but high touch, it will never be. Now, people say, well, it'll become a personality. There was one that New York Times, remember, she said, oh, you should dump your wife or you should become my boyfriend. Those are just anomalies and people blow it out because that's good stories. I would say focus on front office, middle office, back office. Front office will be relatively less impacted because humans require human touch. Even a pat on the shoulder, which AI cannot do. When you're talking to clients, I was in wealth management. I talk to clients in wealth management because I'm doing my own consulting. And I found one thing that I learned from Barack Obama, because I got to meet him and see how he operates, which you can see his videos. When he talks to you, he puts a gentle arm on your shoulder. Studies have shown that if you are in a restaurant and you are the waiter or waitress, and you're giving the bill and tip is optional, if you say, was everything okay? And you just tap on the shoulder a little, it increases the EQ level. Dopamine flows, which means positive, and you give a higher tip. So the high touch jobs will be less affected by AI. And the final thing is find out ways to leverage AI for what you're doing as opposed to waiting for it to take your job. So those are my three thoughts. What are yours and Maha's, because you guys are closer to those folks than I am?
You know, for it varies, I guess, industry to industry. And for example, I work within the EB5 industry. So we consult with different families around the world on their global mobility options to the US. In theory, a lot of these people, they could just go online, type their questions into ChatGPT, and just get broad data information in terms of, hey, here are your next steps. This is what you need to do. End of story. Now you invest or you don't invest. And as you'll see, a lot of these jobs, and you being a wealth management, I'm sure can relate, it's all about that relationship. And you have to be able to communicate not just the value of that investment, of that offer, but also really tailor it to that specific person's situation. Because it's not really a one size fits all. So I go back to that is when I speak to different students at different universities, is that yes, AI is a tool that should be utilized and it can really be helpful in terms of adding clarity to that message and maybe even honing that message to your audience. And that's how you utilize it rather than it kind of replacing you.
Actually, Zishan, you said something really important. There's another aspect to that. You know, I said I write for PWM Financial Times, it's the wealth management arm. The editor is so sharp. If I just use ChatGPT for the article, they'll throw me out. Because it is too generic, too careful. People figure out, even in resumes, My advice, strong advice is create your own first and foremost, then go to it and say, make it funny, make it Financial Times relevant. And it is you in there, they just streamline it. Never forget you, not the Netflix movie, you series, but you as a professional. So thank you for that advice. Maha, anything to add?
Yeah, for sure. So for me personally, I've seen as a student the dawn of, ChatGPT coming in and trying to replace both what was traditionally people brainstorming and a lot of jobs we thought were going to be like journalists or writers getting replaced by AI. But one thing I haven't seen AI able to do yet is something that you reflected on previously in one of your slides. That's being expressive and amiable. So no matter how much ChatGPT or AI tries to give you a solution or writes the best cover letter, and to be honest, we've all used AI for a bunch of different things, whether that's writing an essay, trying to tweak a resume to tailor it to the best position. Um, there's always something personally for me that I need to edit out or edit in because it can't read my mind. It doesn't know what the most vulnerable moments in my career were that impacted me to be in the position I am, to apply for this new position. What is it that I really want to highlight in my personality or my previous positions or my career? So as much as AI tries to become a tool, which it is, I think it's a very positive tool. It can never replace the human aspect of what makes us human, and that's our emotions and the ability to show raw and vulnerable emotions.
Excellent. So that reminds me of a closing quote by Rumi. Yesterday, I was clear and wanted to change the world. Yesterday, I was clear and wanted to change the world. Today, I'm wise. Today, I'm wise, so I'm changing myself. This is holistic. It applies to AI too. How do I change myself? How do I take advantage of the mega trends? How do I improve myself? So going within yourself and then coming out of that, AI becomes, as Ishan said, a tool to help you, not to endanger you. And that was a good observation at the bottom. Amiable, expressive. It's EQ. It's people centric. It cannot duplicate that. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us at this webinar today. We're going to have this recording posted here the next couple of days onto our platforms, and we'll go ahead and share those links at that time. If you guys do have any questions, you're welcome to put those in the chat now, and or follow up with any of us individually. Thank you again.